Avatar: The Last Airbender may be a really fun show, but it has some truly terrifying villains. Watch as we count down the top 10, and be sure to watch to the end to find out what happened to number 1 after the series ended. The very first villain of the series is also the show's most memorable character. Prince Zuko immediately showed himself to be a fierce adversary who would literally pursue Aang to the end of the earth. I mean, the guy swam through the waters of the North Pole into enemy territory and braved a blizzard to capture Aang. All of that was shortly after an admiral in his own army blew him up. Zuko probably had his own line of motivational posters in the Fire Nation. Zuko's real talents were with swords and stealth. Nothing he's done in the series quite compares to his time as the Blue Spirit. He managed to break into a heavily guarded Fire Nation prison and rescue the Avatar all without using his bending. If he'd taught Aang how to be a sneaky ninja instead of a firebender, he would have defeated Ozai a whole lot faster. The only problem with Zuko as a villain is that his heart was never really in it. Don't let that scary scar fool ya. Zuzu is a puppy deep down. It may have taken a successful tea shop and a few betrayals to get him there, but he showed his true heroic colors in the end. You don't have to be evil to be a good villain. Sometimes we need our villains to be evil teenage lightning-bending psychopaths, and sometimes we need a villain who is just a jerk that needs to be slapped around a little bit. As far as jerks go, Master Pakku is among the worst in the series. Despite the fact that the literal world was at stake, he refused to teach Katara how to waterbend just because she was a girl. Katara was the Avatar's best friend and waterbending tutor. It's only logical to teach her offensive waterbending to both protect and train Aang. Not to Pakku, though. Eventually, Katara of the Southern Water Tribe had enough of that old man's nonsense and challenged him to a duel. This was basically like a white belt kid challenging a black belt master. What should have been a quick defeat for Katara ended up being a show of what a prodigy she was in front of everyone. Sure, Pakku lost in the end, but he realized that she was both a worthy pupil and the granddaughter of his long-lost love. So Pakku went from Katara's greatest adversary to her water-bending master. In the end, she was no doubt the best pupil he ever trained. In a world where some people can lift giant boulders into the air and shoot them without much effort, it's hard to be a regular person. Sokka spends most of his time in the series trying to figure out how to deal with this exact problem. Such a problem doesn't exist for Ty Lee, who is one of the greatest threats in the series, despite the fact that she has no fireballs or jagged rocks to chuck. Instead, she's an incredibly talented acrobat and martial artist. She uses precise moves to shut down people's bending and their bodies. Her skills are so great that she once took down both Sokka and Toph in 3 moves. Ultimately, she's less evil than she is a poor judge of who her friend should be. If Ty Lee were a girl today, you'd just know she'd be more excited about hula hooping and music festivals than she would be about world domination. Most of the time, Avatar is a show about cool elemental fights and a little kid hero who likes to ride on the backs of penguins for fun. And then there are the times when it's straight up nightmare fuel. Yeah, we're talking about Ko, the Face Stealer, aka a recurring guest star in all of our childhood nightmares. Ko has a very simple but effective shtick. He's an evil spirit that'll steal and use your face if you show even the slightest emotion. This may have been a greater challenge than facing the Fire Lord for the notoriously emotional Aang. One of his predecessors, Karuk, the Avatar of Eternal Disappointment, lost the love of his life to Ko's face-stealing antics. He went to finish Ko, but ultimately couldn't bring himself to go through with it. We all love villains who have big, complicated backstories and long arcs filled with redemption and betrayal. Of course, we also love that Darth Maul from Episode 1 kinda was a bad guy that just showed up and said very little and was just freaking lethal still. The assassin who Sokka so beautifully dubbed as Combustion Man is definitely that kind of guy. Though Sparky Boom Man is my personal favorite. See, Combustion Man, like his namesake suggests, is a master of the rare art of combustion bending. Through concentration alone, he can cause massive explosions. This makes him incredibly formidable, despite the fact that mastering it cost him several limbs and eventually his life. He came way too close to defeating the gang multiple times until he met the wrath of Sokka and his trusty boomerang. Unlike the Fire Nation and Earth Kingdom dwellers, the folks of the Water Tribes are pretty chill. They mostly just heal people, build giant ice cities, and occasionally become the living embodiment of the Moon Spirit. You know, normal Water Tribe stuff. And then there's also Hama, who is creepy enough for both tribes on her own. See, Hama is a bit of an innovator in the waterbending arts. She's credited with inventing the unholy art of bloodbending. I don't really think she was the inventor of bloodbending, strictly because she was the first person who thought of it. Humans are mostly made of water, and water healers are intimately aware of how the human body works. Nope, she's the inventor of bloodbending because nobody else was quite sick enough to actually make it work. Hama absurdly was, though. Bloodbending made her an incredible, terrifying threat to Team Avatar and the world as a whole. Some fans even theorize that the Fire Nation started hunting waterbenders so ferociously after discovering that Hama could bend their internal fluids. They even think this may have led to the Fire Nation attacking Katara's mother, who posed as a bender to protect her daughter. If this were true, Hama would indirectly be one of the biggest villains of the series, who was sort of responsible for the decimation of the Southern Water Tribe by being creepy, even by Fire Nation standards. And you know that's saying something, because Azula is practically their Captain America. Admit it, during Season 1 of Avatar, there was nobody that you love to hate more than Commander-turned-Admiral Zhao. His ignorance, lack of empathy, and destructive nature make him the epitome of all that was wrong about the Ozai era of the Fire Nation. While his firebending was far too wild and imprecise for him to match the likes of Zuko and Azula, he was a master strategist. He managed to use the Yuyan archers to capture Aang and very nearly conquer the Northern Water Tribe. After searching through the Wan Shi Tong library, he discovered the embodiment of the moon spirit was a simple fish. He attacked it and very nearly made waterbenders extinct. This crime led him to being forced to wander the fog of lost souls for all eternity. If that wasn't enough to give him bad guy cred, he was voiced by Jason Isaacs. That dude was Lucius Malfoy in Harry Potter.
You lost me, my servant!
He was the Inquisitor in Star Wars Rebels and Captain Lorca in Star Trek Discovery. Zhao would have been a legendary bad guy from just that voice alone. Book 2 of Avatar: The Last Airbender took a long detour from its world-hopping antics to stop at the mysterious city of Ba Sing Se. That was okay though, because the evil leader of the Dai Li, Long Fang, was more than enough villain for half a season. He had Ba Sing Se wrapped around his finger so much that none of them knew about the Fire Nation invasion. His machinations included creepy hypnosis rooms, spies with cool rock gloves, and an army of brainwashed Judees. Ultimately, the gang was able to show the Earth King what was up, but they didn't dismantle the Dai Li for some reason. Ultimately, the deceitful Earthbender was undone by someone who made his brand of evil look pretty watered down. Azula took the Dai Li from him and Ba Sing Se right after. Maybe that whole ignoring the Fire Nation plan wasn't all that smart in retrospect. Oh, hold on. It sounds like someone's knocking at my door. My apologies, loyal YouTube patrons. I was mistaken. Long Fang is the greatest Avatar character of all time. The series ends with Book 2, Episode 17. Long Fang wins and the world lives happily ever after. There is no Book 3 of Avatar: The Last Airbender in Ba Sing Se. Before we jump into all the reasons why Princess Azula is awesome, there's one thing that needs to be said. Azula is 14 years old. While most people are starting high school, Azula was busy hunting avatars and conquering cities. She's also one of the greatest benders and strategists in the series. Ba Sing Se is literally described as an impenetrable city, and she took it over with some Kyoshi makeup and her best friends. Not only that, but she's actually managed to mortally wound Aang. If Katara didn't have magic moon water on her, the show would have ended right then and there. What really makes Azula a fantastic villain is that the show doesn't forget that she's a teenage girl. While she's certainly shown drinking all of her father's crazy conqueror Kool-Aid, she's still a fragile kid. This starts to show in the beach episode where Azula struggles to interact with her peers. Azula's flirting makes Sokka look like James Bond. This really hits its peak in the finale when Azula collapses in on herself as she loses everything to Zuko and Katara. In the end, she's revealed to truly be just a broken child who was forced to grow up way too fast. Few shows have ever hyped up a bad guy quite like Avatar hyped up the Fire Lord. It's dropped on Aang in Book 1 that his destiny is to face him during Sozin's Comet. From there, we get a few glimpses of him with his face obscured by shadow and flame. We hear Mark Hamill's wonderfully villainous voice, but we don't truly meet him until Book 3. There, we get to see firsthand what a monster he truly is. We knew he had plans to use Sozin's Comet, but we didn't know how twisted that plan really was. He was gonna wipe the entire Earth Kingdom off the face of the planet. Have you seen a map of the world from Avatar? The Earth Kingdom is most of it. Luckily, Aang swooped in and fulfilled his destiny by putting the hurt on the self-proclaimed Phoenix King. He even permanently took away Ozai's bending, which had to be the worst punishment for such a prideful firebender. And what happened to Ozai after the show? Well, as promised, we'll give you a little bit of what his life was like. He was sentenced to life in prison, where he basically became Hannibal Lecter. He would give Zuko creepy advice now and then while also manipulating things from the shadows. While Zuko and Aang were trying to repair the world, Fire Nation rebels founded the new Ozai Society to reinstate the former Fire Lord. Unfortunately for Ozai, that failed, and he likely spent the rest of his days in solitary confinement. Now that Avatar is popular again, there's a good chance that more of Aang's journey might be told. Knowing Ozai, there was probably at least one more evil plan up his sleeve. Hopefully we'll get to see it. And there you have it, all the best villains in the series. Which one do you think is the best? Would you like to see a list of Korra villains as well? Let us know down in the comments, and please don't forget to like and subscribe for more Avatar action. As always, thanks a lot for watching.